Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural show of Mean Green Mania. We are so happy to be here. We're so happy to get this show going. It was supposed to be outside, but it's raining in Denton, Texas for, like the second time in the past 2 months. So we're doing it inside. I am here with Connor Hibbett, Jalen Tucker, and Gabe Ife. I am your host, Jake Levine, and we are going to be talking about some college basketball today. We're going to talk about the Mean Green first.
Yes.
They have a game today against SMU. We're going to take a look back at what's been going on recently with them. They're 17-5 overall, 7-3 in conference play. Little two-game skid. Let's talk about that two-game skid. Connor, what are your thoughts on these last couple games?
Well, first of all, whenever you have back-to-back road games, it's never easy. Playing on the road in college sports, it doesn't matter the sport, football, basketball, you name it, it gets more challenging. And of course, when you have awesome home court advantage here with the Mean Green Maniacs,
Yes.
it can obviously present something really difficult for the road team. And so now we having to play back-to-back road games, it's not easy. Now, that close game win percentage is something that you always look at in hindsight, because whenever you lose close games, winning a bunch of close games, losing a bunch of close games, it's not sustainable. So what I will say is we lost 2 overtime games. Mm-hmm. That's not like something it's like, oh, we're playing bad right now. We just lost a couple close games. One more point in both of those games in regulation. Now we're talking 2-0. It's like, oh, can anybody beat us? Because we were currently on an 8-game winning streak before that.
Yeah.
So it's really just kind of like in football, it's a game of inches. Basketball, it's a game of runs. Yep. And so sometimes you have a losing streak of 2 if you play back-to-back road games. That's why the last time we've had an undefeated team in college basketball, 1976. It's hard to go undefeated. It's not a sustainable thing.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this tough road trip?
I mean, obviously we had Tulsa. I think when we look at the Tulsa game, we had a lot of turnovers in that game. So it was tight. I mean, the score ended up being 79-74, so it was a tight game. Even in UTS game, that was also another close. Like, I agree with you. Those overtime games it's all about grit, who's going to want it most. I mean, you have 5 minutes in those overtime games, so there's a lot that can go on. So I think back-to-back road games are definitely what was the factor, the key point of what the problem was during that game as well. But, I mean, UNT, the women's team has been on fire. I mean, I'm impressed with their record, 17-5 overall. We were 9-0 in home games. So as you can see, home game advantage definitely shows. I mean, Coach Burton's been great with this team. I've been enjoying watching them play. So, I mean, we're only sitting second in conference. So I know we have a little bit more games to play throughout the schedule. So I think with this game today against SMU, I think that's going to be a win that we can guarantee for the books. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing how the season plays out.
Yeah, I kind of want to dive into the UTSA game, because in that game, our offense was just dreadful. Kind of looking at the stats, it was amazing that we actually made it to overtime. It's a little wordy here, but Desiree Colonel, Shamira Duncan, Jacqueline Moore, Tamisha Lampkin, and Desiree Wooten combined for 10 for 49 from the field. From the field.
Nice.
You are not going to win a whole lot of games when most of your key players are shooting that from the field. So just to get it to overtime was pretty impressive, I would say, for that game with how bad of shooting it was. Giving up in 20, the defense just had to be gassed by the time they got to overtime because of their poor offense. And then, Shamira Duncan continued, she was 0 for 6 from the field against Tulsa. So when some of your key offensive players are just struggling, especially on the road, like Connor talked about, just how tough it is to win on the road, it just kind of continues and builds when you can't hit shots.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about those key players, and a couple of them Jason Burton has brought. And this is our first time of us getting together and talking about this team. So let's look back at the season as a whole. I mean, it's been an unreal start, the best start in program history, I believe.
Yes.
And this is Jason Burton's first year here. So we remember the Jaylee Mitchell era of the previous, the energy it wasn't the same. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the energy now with Jason Burton as the head coach. What kind of fire does he bring to this team? Anyone sound off on it?
Yeah, I mean, can we just talk about the Tulane game that we had not too long, a couple of weeks back? Yeah. I mean, we were down in third quarter. I believe it was 36-51. We were down almost about 20 points that game, basically. Yeah. And I saw he literally broke his clipboard during that game. That man was fired up.
That's what changed it.
Yeah, that's what changed the motion.
Crazy run.
Then he changed his suit at halftime that other game.
Sorry to jump
No,
in.
go
I have
ahead.
a key point that sticks out to me in the UAB game. Desiree Colonel, we're up in the fourth quarter. I just think this shows how much energy, how much love they have for Coach Burton. Desiree Colonel gets a charge. I didn't know it at the time. It was her first charge of the year.
Yeah.
Midway through the game, they stoppage and play. She runs over to Coach Burton, daps him up, and gives him a little chest bump. Just like they're playing with so much joy and energy.
Exactly.
Yeah, Colonel came with Coach Burton from Texas A&M. She's also she's a fifth-year senior as well. So the type of energy that she has been bringing in women's basketball here at UNT is electric. I love her energy, the way she plays the game this season here at UNT. I mean, she's getting everyone fired up, especially the Mean Green Maniacs. Of course, she's getting everyone. She's yelling over that student section. Get her.
It's a mutual love for her.
It's a mutual love, exactly. So she's definitely has been one of the key factors of that energy for the UNT ladies basketball team.
And man, Mean Green Maniacs, Mean Green Mania. You can't get enough Mean Green right
Yeah.
now. Man, let's talk. So the women's team, the last couple of seasons, was at the bottom of Conference USA, and we moved to a stronger conference in the American Athletic, and now we're competing in first place.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the era of college athletics that we're currently in, the transfer portal era, the NIL era, the era that currently has zero regulation. So that means you got to find the loopholes, the things to kind of get advantage over your opponents. And we have done that with a first-year coach who brought in a bunch of transfers who are now these huge contributors. I think people underestimate the power of the transfer portal. Just because you bring in a bunch of portal players doesn't mean that they're inexperienced, they don't know how to play, they've forgotten how to play the game of basketball. It's really all about meshing well together. And we did that from the start this year. We're currently 17-5. Had we not gone on a 2-game skid, which we were that close to going 2-0 last week, we have an outside chance of being ranked in the top 25 in the entire country. We're talking about a team just a year ago that was at the bottom of Conference USA. Now we're in the American Athletic, and we're killing it. 17-5 overall. I'm not saying like it's a shame to be 17-5. I'm just saying we were this close to being ranked in the top 25. To me, that's crazy.
I'm expecting us to win over 20 games by the end of the season. So, I mean...
Oh, we'll have 20 wins by the end of next week.
Exactly. So, I'm really enjoying our women's team this year, and just like the transformation from last year to this year and the people that we're bringing in. Also, looking at our starting lineup that we do have very much experience. That's what we have. We have a lot of seniors and juniors and grad students that are playing in that starting lineup. So that's really that experience is what's the key factor of this season.
Well, Gabe, let me hear it.
You look at like Jacqueline Moore, she's from Incarnate Word, excuse me.
Yeah.
Shamira Duncan's from Wichita State, and then Desiree Colonel's from A&M Commerce, like we said earlier. For Jason Burton to be in his first year, have 17 wins already, and our program record is 21 wins. And we still have 8 games left in the regular season, not to mention the conference tournament. And if we continue at this pace, we'll make at least the women's NIT. So it's looking, at least right now, barring a complete collapse, that he breaks program history year one. That's just incredible.
And with how great of a season we've had so far, and like Gabe just said, we could make at worst the NIT, maybe even host a couple games there. That means you're going to get to hear more of us because our season goes longer.
And who doesn't want that? I mean, we've been on for 6 minutes, and this is already the most entertaining thing you'll see all day. The Super Bowl is happening tomorrow. We're more entertaining than the Super Bowl.
Yeah, everyone's talking about the Mean Green Mania and the Mean Green Maniacs instead of the Super Bowl. That's how you know. That's how quality we are. And speaking of quality, we are on track to have the most quality season in program history.
Yes.
We are currently on track to have the best winning percentage. Right now, we have 77% winning percentage. Our official best as of right now is around 73%. And this is, JB's first year as our head coach. He already has the most wins for a first-year coach in our program's history already. Yeah. And we're not even finished with the regular season yet.
I don't know really much more you can ask for, but we are going to move on now. We're going to be talking about some nationally recognized news, nationally recognized college basketball teams. When we come back from the commercial break, don't go anywhere.
Can I see your voter registration, please? All right, you're good. No registration, no entry. All right. Let me see your voter registration card, please.
I'm not registered to vote.
No registration, no entry.
Dude, my friends are already in there.
No registration, no entry.
What the?
Join the club. Register to vote today.
It's that time of year where everyone plays a dangerous game with the flu. Going in uneducated, you run the risk of symptoms like cough, migraine, and fatigue. Don't be like this guy. Combat the flu with cough drops, ibuprofen, and a good night's sleep. Be smart, don't catch the flu.
Welcome back to Mean Green Mania. Jake Levine, Jalen Tucker, Connor Hibbett, and Gabe Ives went out of order there a little bit. We recovered. We are back, and we're going to talk about some more college basketball on the women's stage. There's a lot going on. Super Bowl Sunday is going to be big in terms of women's college basketball. We've got a lot of big games to talk about. Gabe, I know you have some stuff that you want to talk about. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, we have some really big games this weekend. A couple ranked matchups that I could see some potential upsets I kind of want to get into. I kind of want to get into some fun upset picks.
Getting the
that I think
nitty-gritty.
could be
Let's go.
happening on Sunday.
Yeah, nitty-gritty.
So one, Oklahoma is ranked number 24 in the country, and they're playing at Iowa State. Iowa State's had a rough non-conference. They're 7-3 in conference, though. They've done great since getting in conference. We'll talk about this later. We'll talk about different conferences and what we think about them. I personally think Big 12 is one of the best conferences in the nation. I'll kind of get into that later. But I think, Ames is always a tough place to play. I could really see the Sooners losing to them. And then the other big game I see is Florida State plays a number 12 Notre Dame. It's at Florida State. Tania Latson is averaging 20 a game for Florida State. I really think they could pull off an upset against the Irish.
I did see that one. Jalen, what do you think of those takes?
Yeah, we have, the ranked matchups are a great example. I mean, we even have a game today with Baylor versus West Virginia. Baylor's 18th and West Virginia's 22nd. So that's a big right there. And then they also talked about Big 12 being such a strong conference. So that's a big upset to watch later today as well. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I'm really just enjoying these ranked teams, really. I mean, you think about ranked teams like South Carolina, Iowa, NC State, Colorado being ranked number 4. I think if you watch College Game Day in football, I was big on Colorado. I was on the little hype train a little bit, but I mean their basketball team is also up there as well. Iowa State, even think about LSU. They're ranked 13 right now. They definitely fall very far from the ranks. As you guys know, they did win the women's national championship last year, but they definitely are falling a little bit on the ranks. I mean, they've had a lot of controversy through the media with Angel Reese, and that kind of goes back to the point with the NIL deals and things like that. Angel Reese makes a lot of money with just her NIL deals herself. Yeah. She makes a lot of likeness in her name. So I know the fact of her being basically like a senior in college, she's very popular within women's sports. So she's someone that people look up to. So I know that's a lot of pressure for her and just the LSU basketball team.
I wanna jump in here. You mentioned Angel Reese and the amount of money that she's making. I don't know if you guys saw, but she gifted the entire men's basketball team with Beats, and the coaches all got
look at the guys
Beats headphones. If you look back 20 years ago,
Can you imagine?
that never would have even been dreamt
definitely
of
not.
in humanity.
I just think 10 years ago that may not even been dreamt of.
Yeah.
Right. Like 5 years ago, that wouldn't even been dreamt of. And now we have a women's college basketball player gifting the men's basketball team Beats headphones. Like, this is awesome.
They even
like,
do
this is
that
epic.
in other sports too, because even like me, say I am a track athlete. There's a lot of big schools that have that NIL money, and they're able to gift those things to the athletes. So NCAA has changed the game when it comes to NIL deals and things like that for students. And it makes sense. Those athletes are putting their bodies on the line every game to fill up those stadiums, to fill up those arenas, to watch them play a sport that they love. I mean, think of someone Caitlin Clark, who is a beast right now. She's literally on pace to breaking the women's national record in points. I mean, she has been averaging at least 34 points a game. What kind of women's athlete are you seeing doing that today?
Right.
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting topic that I actually saw on X, I guess.
X,
yeah.
Not Twitter.
I always get that mixed up. But it was a tweet that went post.
It was
that
an X. It was an
yeah,
X
it's
that
an
went.
X that went and it said, Caitlin Clark is the greatest ever college women's basketball player. Prove me wrong. I think Cheryl Miller and Cheryl Swoops, two Cheryls, would be up there in competition right now. I think what they did, I'm pretty sure Cheryl Swoops was a 3-time Player of the Year in her time at, I believe, Tech. But I would say even though they were in the 90s, I think that so far they are still the best. I think that she could get to be the best, but what are y'all's opinions?
Yeah, I feel like this is a big time like Jordan versus LeBron thing, and I think the percentage is only about 30% of people who agree with me that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. And I think it's because of competition. You know, they were playing in the 70s, right? They're playing against 95 of their players are going to become accountants, you know? And the competition that Caitlin Clark is going up against nowadays is way better than what it was in 50 years ago. So I think if you put Caitlin Clark in the 70s, she's putting up 80 points a game. If you put those players in now today, I don't think they're scoring 20 a game. So I think the impact that Caitlin Clark has had on the game is unreal. I think you have to throw her in. Yeah, I think you have to throw her in the number one spot just for the competition.
Go
for it.
With the different eras of sports, and it doesn't matter if it's college or professional, high school. The rules have changed. Back, if you look at like film like from the 50s and the 60s, if you notice the way players drive to the basket, it's a little different. Want to know why? It's because they weren't allowed to take 3.5 steps to go in for layups. They weren't allowed to kind of travel as much. Now, I'm not trying to say that the players today aren't as talented or it's any harder. What I'm saying is that the game has changed. Also, you have to keep in mind, they didn't have three-pointers for the longest time. That's why a lot of the like the highest scores per game average are in the modern era since the three-point line was invented. Let me mull that over to see why that's been the case. And then so the game has changed. Now, what the positive that I'll say in terms of what's different now, what's better now than what was back then. Training is so much better now.
The technology.
There's so much, technology's better. The coaching is better. I think there's just I think there's an increase in awareness to understand how to develop athletes better than there was before. And so that's why players are a little healthier than they were before. Like I said, the training is better. They're in better shape. They're on more eating programs, just a certain awareness today that we didn't have back then. So obviously players, they're kind of put on a higher pedestal today, and they also have more media attention. That's why if you ever look at best players in history, it'll be from like the last 15, 20 years. There's no secret to that either. But yes, obviously the game has changed, and that's why stats are changing.
Now, we're talking about the best players in history. Let's talk about the best team in history. And it is the South Carolina Gamecocks. I mean, this is undisputed at this point what Dawn Staley's done with this program, but they're going up against what we thought was going to be the best team in history in UConn. I mean, for probably a decade there, they were unreal. Yeah. They're going up against each other on Super Bowl Sunday before the Super Bowl. So yes, you can watch it before the Super Bowl. Please do. It's number 1 versus number 11 matchup in Columbia, South Carolina. I want your guys' thoughts. Players to watch, who you think's going to win, score predictions, anyone, go first.
No, yeah, I think a player definitely to watch is Aaliyah Edwards on UConn. She's been averaging 17 points a game, 8 rebounds. She's definitely someone who is a key player for UConn for this game. I mean, yes, South Carolina is 21-0. Let's just say that one more time. 21-0. And right now, undefeated. Yes, beast. I mean, obviously, as you guys know, last season in the semifinals, they did lose to Iowa against Caitlin Clark. But, I mean, there's
Thank you, Iowa. Thank you, actually, because I don't think
the greatest player of all time.
I just think that they're a team to watch to be in the national talk for maybe even winning the championships this year. So, but this game against UConn is going to be a matchup for the centuries to watch.
Gabe, what do you think?
I would say that we talked about how South Carolina is the best program in women's basketball history, women's college basketball history. I would have to say UConn might be the second best program in college basketball history.
It's neck and neck, I mean.
Yeah, I feel like UConn, I couldn't tell you how much national championships they have, but for about a 10-year span, it felt like they were in that game every single year. But for my prediction about this game, what's going to happen Sunday, 3 p.m., I think South Carolina is going to win. I think it'll be like about 74-70, I would say. I think it'll be close. I think UConn will give them a run for their money, but in the end, you just can't bet against South Carolina.
Yeah, just also on their record and the people that they have on their team. I mean, but they are going to have some key elements of their players missing, because I think we have someone, Roger. I think she's from Brazil, and she's also competing. You know, it's 2024, so it's the year of the Olympics. So she's going to be on the women's team for the Olympics team, so she's going to be gone for that. They also had a player get suspended at South Carolina. She's a freshman though. So there's going to be maybe some key points, but I think they are going to handle their business. I do agree with you, Gabe. It's going to be one of those close games, those nail biter games. It's going to come down to that fourth quarter. That last minute and a half is what's going to be really who wants it more in the game. So that's what I'm expecting, a very tight, a packed game too. I think it's definitely going to be a lot of eyes on this game. I wouldn't expect over thousands of people watching the game at home or even there in person going to be seeing the game.
Probably be sold out.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
The two best programs in women's college basketball go at it. I mean, what's better than that, right? But South Carolina, for me, how about the season that they're having this year? Because they were supposed to take a little bit of a drop off after last year. They lost a lot of their production. Anytime you lose a lot of your production in college sports, it's hard to repeat whatever that high bar that previous team
UNT men's
set.
basketball.
Exactly, and of course they did it, year after year after year, and after they beat Purdue in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. But yeah, it's hard when you lose a lot of your production to reach that high bar that previous team set, but yet South Carolina does it year in and year out. It's like what UConn was doing several years ago. So yeah, the two best programs going at it. Until South Carolina loses, I'm not going to pick them to lose, so I'm going to pick South Carolina to win this game. And then of course, when you look at it from the national scale, I mean, who do we think could compete with South Carolina and UConn? Maybe Iowa.
Yeah.
Iowa's there.
I think
Iowa's
LSU
there.
can come up a little bit. I think they're going to
fade LSU.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to
yeah.
play LSU.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I wouldn't want to play LSU because you do have Angel Rose, Flage. There's a lot of good key players from
Van
LSU. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, are they going to be up there in the talk? Yes, of course. I mean, they are the defending champs, of course. So they're going to be in that bracket. But do I think they're going to be in that final two? Maybe not.
Gabe,
Maybe.
is anyone catching Carolina?
I don't think so. I think LSU might could. We kind of take a look at this, and we look at LSU, Carolina, and you immediately think the SEC is kind of probably the best conference in women's college basketball.
Tennessee?
Tennessee. You look at this. Well, I kind of want to present a little bit of a topic with that. I would say the Big 12 is kind of right under there. I don't think the Big 12 has a team. I could see Baylor doing some damage.
Not Oklahoma, though.
Maybe upsetting. No, not Oklahoma. But you see they have 5 teams in the top 25. And then they have 2 great programs in Kansas and Iowa State.
Yeah.
And I would say Texas Tech with Krista Gerlich is also on the rise. But the SEC is amazing. But I could see if any conference was to kind of upset some teams in March, I could see the Big 12.
I do love that point. I would like to counter it though. The ACC also has 5 ranked teams, and I wouldn't want to play NC State come March because they have taken the league by storm. And it's kind of a dogfight between all these conferences. I don't think there's one clear, definitive conference that runs
who
women's
stands
college
out, yeah.
basketball. In men's college basketball, it's pretty clear at this point it is the Big 12.
Yes.
Women's college basketball is kind of all over the place at this point,
Yeah, and shout out to NC State. They had pretty low expectations, actually, about their lowest in a decade in Raleigh this year, and yet they have been probably the greatest overachieving team this year in women's college basketball. And, of course, Virginia Tech just pulled off an upset against NC State a couple nights ago. Also, so last year the Final Four participants was LSU, Iowa, South Carolina, and Virginia Tech. Is there a possibility that we could see this at least half the same teams, maybe 3 of the same teams?
Yeah, I mean, it's
At least half.
Women's college basketball is kind of full of dynasties,
Yes.
Those same group of teams just kind of continue to dominate Iowa, UConn, South Carolina, et cetera. And so it's kind of Tennessee thrown there too. It's kind
Colorado in
of
the
hard
mix.
to predict a Final Four without at least 2 of those teams, especially South Carolina. I feel like they're a lock. I don't see anyone beating them in the Elite 8 or before that. So.
Well, you have to think when it gets to the tournament play, we're in the postseason, so they've had a very long, drawn-out season. I mean, everyone pretty much started in late November, early December when games are starting. So there's so many games. So you coming into the postseason, you're going to be a different team around that time. So it's really anybody's ball game come to the tournament time. So it's going to be all about grit, what players are going to stand out in the postseason. Because right now there might be players that are low right now with their averaging points. Maybe they're only doing 10 10, 15 points a game right now. But when it gets to that postseason, that's where things get ramped up to a different level. So we might see some players just stand out like a star going into
What about a team
postseason.
like Colorado? Could they do?
Yeah, I think Colorado could be in the top 2. I mean,
Super.
they are ranked in the top 5 right now.
And that's what you look at this, and there's just several programs that always, no matter what, are just in that. I think it's the coaches and the programs in general.
Right.
And we were talking about LSU, South Carolina. You know, I would say Texas with Vic Schaefer is starting to become one of those teams.
Yeah,
you just start to
Texas on
expect several of these teams in that Elite Eight, Sweet 16 at least. So these teams that, you know, might not be having the best regular seasons or having great regular seasons, but there's just several programs out there that we've discussed already, UConn, that just come tournament time, you expect them in the Sweet 16, Elite Eight. These are teams, programs that just do not get upset.
Yeah, team like LSU, you don't want to play them even if they're having a, less than stellar regular season. We are going to move on from this. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the American Conference women's basketball. So stay right with us, go get a snack, and then come back.
Movie.
Man, I have all these non-perishable food items, and I don't know what to do with them.
I don't have any food at all.
Do you have too many non-perishable goods?
Yeah.
Have you run out of food and can't get any more?
Yeah.
Well, don't have a cow. Head on down to the UNT Food Pantry. Located behind Crumley Hall and Diamond Eagle Student Resource Center, the Food Pantry is the place for UNT students to get all the food they need. You'll be utterly surprised by all the options they have there. From gluten-free to lactose intolerant, even vegan and vegetarian, they have it all. Go to studentaffairs.unt.edu/food pantry for more information.
Move on down to the UNT Food Pantry.
Welcome back to Mean Green Mania. I'm your host, Jake Levine. I've got Connor Hibbett, Jalen Tucker, and Gabe Ife with me. We're not talking about buttered sausage. We're going to be talking about the American Conference women's basketball and how the standings are looking. It is real heavy up at the top, guys.
Yes.
I mean, it is an absolute dogfight for first place. This conference tournament is going to be a lot of fun down in Fort Worth.
Yes.
UNT did hold first place, but they've fallen just out as UAB has one more win than we do. Let's just talk about it. I mean, how it's been going, the tiebreakers. It's going to be crazy in that last week of the season. Connor, what do you think, man?
We were talking about buttered sausage. Let's talk about a team that's currently eating.
Yeah.
It's North Texas, Mean Green. Obviously, we've had a breakthrough season. I think we have a chance to do something special maybe at the end of the season. We'll see. But yeah, this is a very competitive conference. When you look at the standings, a couple days ago, there were like 5 teams tied for second. There was a 3-way tie for first. Currently, UAB is on top right now at 8-3 overall. We beat UAB decisively, though.
Yeah.
A week ago, and then a couple of straight losses. But yeah, I think it's a very competitive conference outside of maybe a few teams at the bottom. But even like Tulane, who's currently 3-8, they almost beat us
Yes.
here.
Wouldn't want to play
in
'em.
Very
Dayton.
close game.
Right. So it's just a very competitive conference. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, moving from Conference USA to the American Athletic is not an easy thing to do, and yet we've somehow managed to do it, and we've done it so with fireworks. We've been probably one of the biggest breakthrough teams this year.
Yes.
Because 17-5 overall. I mean, we already have 6 more wins, I believe, than we did all of last season.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest turnaround in the American Athletic, Conference USA, American
Probably in
Athletic
group of
teams.
5. Probably in group of
Yeah,
5.
probably
Thank
Yeah,
Coach
mid-major,
JB
yeah.
for that, really.
Yeah.
That's really thanks
Yeah.
to him. And
What do you think about these standings?
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we're up there. We're basically tied for second right now. I mean, yeah, we did have those 2 losses, back-to-back road games. But losing to a team like UTSA, where they are 5-5 in conference, obviously that's a big loss right there. But I think, like you said, we did manage to win against UAB, but we're going to be playing them on the road later and a couple weeks later in the season. So that's obviously going to be a test for us when it comes to that. I mean, that's what I think. The teams that are up there, UAB, Tulsa now being up there, being 7-3, us being up there, Rice even being 7-4. So it's a really tight bunch on who's going to be number 1 in conference. But like you said, Connor, it's a very competitive conference this year. The level of playing how we're playing. I mean, I'm enjoying the amount of work that's going in UNT and how they're playing on the court. I mean, the flow, the motion that they're doing on the games is just stellar performances. Everything across the board I've been enjoying. I just wouldn't be surprised if we can end up on top of this conference.
Yep. Well, you look with about 6 games left to go, I would say around 6 for most teams left. 9 teams are 3 games or back or less of UAB, which is in first place.
Any one of them could get to first.
There's like 10 different teams counting UAB that can end up first place in the American this year. If that doesn't show you how close or like what could happen over these next couple of weeks.
Games, they're always close too.
Yes, every game seems to be a nail biter these days. You know, UNT wins today. They're back and tied UAB for first place. I believe they have the tiebreaker. I'm not 100% sure.
We would own the tiebreaker because we beat.
But it is just there's really not one team you can say is going to run away with this conference.
Right, and you look at even a team that's in the middle of the pack, tied for 5th place is Charlotte. They're 6-5. They beat us head to head. I was actually at that game, and that's a team you don't want to play. They're 6-5, but
I can tell you all about that.
Yeah, you don't want to play them, and especially also in men's basketball and crazy. Charlotte's going nuts, but anyways, we're not going to talk about that. There are teams in this conference that are in the middle of the pack. When it comes to a conference tournament, you don't want to play them.
You talk about Charlotte. I bring another team that I think is a potential dark horse candidate in USF, South Florida. You know, they had a tough loss to Rice the other night, but other than that, they've been playing very well since we beat them earlier this past month. They're only 2 games out. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them make a push. They played us very hard when we played them, and they're a very solid team. You know, but you have so many teams like that, like Charlotte, South Florida. There's just so many different teams that could make a push.
I'm going to even talk about even Tulane's another team that I think that's someone who's kind of could be a dark horse as well that can move up in the ranks. Like we mentioned earlier, we were down in 3rd quarter. It was 36-51 that game. So it was a tight game against Tulane. And even though we did pull out the win, that was at home though. That's the thing. Those home court advantages does make a difference. Right. Even we're playing UTSA later in the season. We're going to be at home for that game. So I'm expecting us to win that. Moment. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a big revenge moment. Right. I mean, we went into overtime with them. So just looking at the strength of our schedule, I mean, we have SMU today, FAU, UTSA, Charlotte, and UAB. And Charlotte's going to be, I believe that's going to be at home or that's going to be away.
That's going to be at home.
That's going to be at home. So we have 2 at-home games within UTSA and Charlotte. So I think that home court advantage is definitely going to be the key factor for us to winning those later games. And then also we have like Eastern Carolina. But
now, you just mentioned about what it takes for UNT to win at home. There's a great home team, right? The conference tournament, we are the closest team.
At home, yeah, basically.
SMU, Denton, Dallas, Denton, whatever.
That's close enough.
Yeah, right. What does that mean? Like, you're playing in the conference tournament. Some of these teams at Florida Atlantic, Charlotte, they have to travel Temple. They have to travel very far just to get to Fort Worth. What does it mean for this team to go home every night, sleep in their own bed, and then come back to the conference tournament?
In the first block, I talked about road games and how challenging it is in any sport, and it's because of multiple factors. One, it's the road environment. So sometimes you have a really loud crowd that really gets into it. That's the most obvious because you can see that with your own 2 eyes. You can hear it when it's even if you're not there in person, you can just feel the momentum of the home team. Second, and this is really what does not get discussed, changing of your plans and your schedule. You go on the road, maybe your sleeping pattern changes, maybe your eating pattern changes. All those little things, sometimes it'll mess with your mind. It's half physical, half mental. And that's why the road games for almost every single team, no matter the sport, is really challenging. You want to take probably the best example, look at the NBA. Almost every single team is going to have at best a 500 record on the road, and then their home record is going to be several games better, if not like 10 or 15 games better sometimes. There is a reason for that. It's just not because they forget how to play basketball. They're intimidated by the crowd. Okay, sometimes the crowd can be intimidating at certain spots. You're shooting a free throw or something like that. Right. But for the most part, it's really just the little things. Your schedule really changes. That's the difference.
UNT's going to have a leg up in that.
Exactly. And then we got the Maniacs, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Gabe, go for it.
You look at UNT specifically, we're 17-5 this year. Well, we're 17-5. Our 5 losses all been road games.
Yeah.
We've not had a loss at home.
Yep.
And this, talking about Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, that's as close as we can get to a home game.
Yeah.
So that just has to give you confidence going in. You know, probably going back to Denton after every game, every night, being able to go back and just get up in the morning and head back to Dickies Arena. That just gives you so much more confidence, so much more. Connor's talking about schedule, just kind of giving you that schedule and easiness.
Right.
it just helps so much.
It makes it feel like less of like an ordeal, you know? The more it feels like a regular game, I think the better shot you get. So UNT and SMU, teams I wouldn't want to play in the conference tournament.
Yeah, because it's only 45 minutes basically for us, for Denton, and for Dallas, probably about 35 minutes. So you're going to see a lot of fans in the red, in the green at those tournaments for that week. So you're going to it's going to feel like basically home court advantage for any sake of who we're playing who. So, I mean, that's something that we as UNT should be looking for going into the postseason. And just the level of strength that we have been playing in the postseason and the people that we have on our team. Lampkin has been a beast on the court that we have for her. Colonel, Robertson. There's so many people that I can just name that's been just key factors for us here at UNT and how we can look going into postseason. And, yeah, like you said, we are undefeated at home. We're 9-0 at home. I mean, we're going to be 10-0.
Going to be 10-0 today.
We're going to be 10-0 today. Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. Let's talk about real quick a prediction for who's winning the conference tournament. Me personally, I'm taking the University of North Texas Mean Green.
Yeah.
Because what this team has shown us this year is unreal, and all of their losses have been really tough, close games. Even that Charlotte loss on the road was a tough, close game. They could easily be 10-0 in conference and be ranked in the top 25. I'll take us to win the conference tournament. Connor, who do you think?
Oh, hang on, I got some done here. Right, this.
Yeah.
We're going to go with the Mean Green. Look, can't go against experience.
Yes.
I talked about the transfers. They're meshing well together.
Yes.
Experience matters in March. Good guard play. Guard play matters in March, and we have that times 10. So I think we have a shot actually of winning the Conference USA tournament or Conference American Athletic Conference tournament.
Still getting it
yeah,
out.
We're still whatever conference we're in, we have a chance of winning it.
Period.
But we have a chance of winning the conference tournament and maybe even winning something in March Madness. We'll see.
It's in there.
Spicy.
I have to agree with all of my analysts here on the table. I definitely agree. I think the team that we're looking like, we have the possibility of winning a conference championship with a first-year head coach here for us, Jason Burton. Being his first year here at UNT. I mean, he's had obviously a lot of success back at Texas A&M Commerce, and then him bringing Desiree Colonel here on the team, and Robertson as well, bringing those two transfers here with him. He's definitely made a huge impact. I mean, he's up there for the most wins in UNT history as a first-year UNT women's basketball coach. That just says a lot about him. As a coach, and the way that he's affect his players, and like you said, the transfers and all the people that have been meshing together in that starting lineup has been such a big impact for us. And just the energy they bring to UNT has been nothing but amazing, really.
Gabe, who's winning the conference tournament?
Well, I don't want us to end up on freezing cold takes, but I'm also going with the UNT Mean Green. You know, I think we talked earlier about our losses to UTSA and Tulsa. And you never want to lose.
Yeah, of course.
But when do you want to be playing your best basketball? In March. And so if it takes us going through a little stretch right now, a little rough patch offensively while we're figuring some little ruts out to get us going into getting better, and, you know, we went today, we start getting a little more momentum going into the tournament. If we get some momentum going into the conference tournament, you know, talking about being so close to home, I don't see SMU, I don't see any team stopping us in the conference.
I agree with you. I think that's a good take. I think it's important to be on the right run when the conference tournament comes. When we come back, we're going to be previewing this game today. We're going to have very special guests with us whom you all know his voice, so stay right with us.
And now we return to Fabric of Passion.
Oh, Hector, it will be so hard for us to part, but we must.
But, my love, what did I do? I thought we were meant to be together forever.
I am so disheartened to say that you're just not in style anymore. But you will be, to someone else, in a better place.
You're gonna shred me?
No.
I'm donating you to one of the many clothing donation boxes available on campus. There is one in the Union by the Syndicate and one on Union Circle Drive.
Oh, well, why didn't you just say so? I'm gonna be someone's new shirt.
I thought you'd be more distressed.
Oh, absolutely not. It was cramped in your closet anyways.
Maybe you would like to be shredded after all.
No, I been feeling gross all week.
Maybe we should go get a COVID test.
But I already have all 3 of my shots.
Yeah, but you can still get it. I mean, maybe we should go get one just in case.
Yeah, you're right. We have that party and all that.
Yeah.
Where do we even get tested here?
Let me check.
You can find free COVID testing sites at the University Union, room 381 on weekdays, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and on weekends, 1 p.m. to 7 p.m., and at Chestnut Hall, room 120 from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. You have to show the QR code given to you when you arrive for an appointment. Tests take no longer than 10 minutes to complete. Results will be sent through text or email within the next 48 hours.
I got a negative COVID test. Me too. Oh my God, let's go to the party. Yes.
Welcome back to Mean Green Mania for our final block. I'm your host, Jake Levine. I'm joined by Connor Hibbett, Jalen Tucker, Gabe Ife, and the voice of the Mean Green, Zach Babb. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about this game upcoming this afternoon at 2 o'clock. It's going to be the North Texas Mean Green and the SMU Mustangs. UNT won the last matchup in Dallas by double digits. Zach, you are the voice of the Mean Green. I want to hear your thoughts first about how you think this game's going to go.
Man, I mean, you go back to the first game that they played down at Moody Coliseum in Dallas, and I mean, it was probably the most complete game of the season, maybe still to this point, that the Mean Green have played. I mean, the preparation was there. You talked to Jason Burton a little bit heading into that game, and it was probably the best week of practice they had, the best, shoot around the morning of the game. Best whatever it could be, and they led cover to cover in that contest. 10-0 run to start the game, and then never looked back from there. So, I don't know if it's going to be exactly what that was down in Moody. I mean, the second time playing a team, you're always going to get some different looks and see how SMU looks to respond. But I still like the Mean Green to potentially or to pull this one out. So
yeah.
Yep. I mean, what do you guys think? You guys agree with him?
It's a rival.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just because we beat them the first time think it's going to be like written in script, written in stone that we're going to win the second time. But playing here at home court advantage, it's going to matter. I would obviously probably pick us to win because we won by a decisive margin. Like Zach just said, we played a complete game. And honestly, coming off of 2 straight losses, I would think that we're really itching to get a victory here. And back at home, the Maniacs, Mania previewing, and then Maniacs at the game. Can't get any better than that. And I'm sure, again, playing here in Denton, we're really itching to get a victory coming off 2 straight losses. And close losses, so it's not like we got beat decisively where it's like, oh, maybe fade UNT. No, it's more like, oh, I think I would pick UNT in this spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Those road games definitely play a factor when it comes to things like that. So us being back at home is going to be a key factor for us. And I mean, the energy is going to be there. Like you said, we have the Maniacs, we have the student section. We're going to have obviously family, friends that are going to be there at the game. So it's going to be just a big game. Obviously, rival games are always big, important. Of course, here, I mean, it's across the pond, basically, Dallas. Nothing but a 30-minute drive from them to get over here. So, I mean, it's going to be an electric game. But I definitely can see us pulling out the win. It's going to be one of those maybe like a tight game, maybe like 10, 15-point type of game. But I'm looking forward to it this afternoon.
This is the type of game that's always going to be close just because of the rivalry.
Yeah.
Growing up, I kind of experienced that with the Texas OU game. No matter the team's records, you kind of throw out the records. Right. It's going to be a close game. I think coming off of 2 losses, especially kind of our poor offense at UTSA, our offensive performance. We picked that up a little bit against Tulsa, but I would expect a home crowd. I would expect everybody just to be back firing full cylinders. Right. We limit the turnovers today, and I really see us winning as well.
Tulsa could not miss a shot there in those last few minutes.
That was so frustrating, man.
And
then all that, I mean, it was because they had 5 points at the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter, and they ended the quarter with 27. Yeah. It's suddenly everything fell, and it's like Jason Burton said before. Sometimes that just happens. That's the game of basketball. So, like y'all all said, I mean, the last 2 losses were not blowouts by any means. They were tough defeats to swallow, obviously, when you're that close. But when you go back to the first SMU game, I mean, you out-rebounded them by 20. I think it was like 43-23 was the final rebound margin. So, it's you don't want to take anything for granted. Nothing's a given in this sport. But, you certainly hope that the Mean Green will kind of righten the ship that's barely even wobbled really over the last couple
Now,
games.
Zach, I have a question for you because you have followed this team at home and on the road. And we mentioned earlier in the show that all 5 losses are on the road and they're 9-0 at home. What have you noticed about this team, how they play differently on the home or at home and on the road. Like, what are the discrepancies there?
Yeah, I really think it's hard to pin exactly, but I think you can take kind of the general things and look at it and say, you know, there's a certain psychological aspect to it, being on the road. And, you know, when I first started doing these games 5 years ago, it was like, wow, road trips, this is awesome. I'm in a hotel and get to go do basketball. By the time you've done it over and over again, it gets kind of old. So, you know, the shine of flying out to Florida or whatever kind of wears off when you've done it so many times. And there's just something, too, about waking up in your own bed on game day where, you know, you don't have to worry about. There's always such a strict schedule whenever you're on the road, and you know, you got to be up at this time, and breakfast is at this time, and then we get on the bus and go to shoot around at this time. And there's not really, there's still some of that, obviously, but it's not near as constricted as a home game is. And so sometimes you just, you know, being at home versus being on the road, it's just so much easier, and eventually that does catch up to you sooner or later as the season goes along, even if you're a really good team.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. This team has shown us so far that they dominate at home, and hopefully that's going to continue today. Go to 10-0 at home. Let's talk about a certain player to talk about. Desiree Colonel, last time she went up against the Mustangs, she had a double-double, right? But guard Tiara Young for SMU has had double-digit points in 9 straight games, and she did against UNT last time they played. What do you guys think about this matchup? It's clearly going to be pretty electric between these two because they're both on fire.
Yeah.
First of all, the Colonel is popping.
The Colonel's
yes,
popping.
I was waiting for you to say
Desiree has
it.
been awesome this year. But you look at the transfers, as we've mentioned this whole entire show, they've meshed very well together this year. She's very experienced. She knows what to do. I think also when you look at her from a psychological aspect, she always seems to be in it. And she always seems to have that slight edge over the person guarding her. And when you look at it from a competitive standpoint, it's always going to put her a foot forward. She's always like an extra step. She's like a step faster than her opponent. She's anticipating better than her opponent. It's really fun watching her. And like Tamisha Lampkin, they work really well together. Yeah. It's been really fun watching this team. And of course, the energy, offensively and defensively, she's got the whole package.
Yeah, no, let me just go over her stats as a player. I mean, she's averaging 16 points a game, having about 7.9 on the rebound points a game. So she's definitely one of the dominant players here at UNT. So she's definitely made a big impact on the team. I mean, coming as a transfer from Texas A&M Commerce, with Jason Burton as well. She's been nothing but electric to watch, and I agree. Psychologically, she is a little bit a step ahead. I mean, she knows how to get in the mind of a player. Yeah. Me personally, I wouldn't want to line up her on the court. Right. So she definitely is intimidating a bit. But when I tell you I'm the biggest Colonel fan of her, I'm literally obsessed because she's just, the energy she brings to women's sports is just amazing. And she's someone to look up to as a player.
Yeah. It's kind of energy that you feel when you open a bag of kettle corn popcorn and it gets popping.
You know, I've got a quick story to that point. You guys talking about the psychological aspect of things. This has been my favorite story of the season so far, and I'll keep it brief. But the Tulane game, I think it was the Tulane game. It was either Tulane or Wichita State when she collided with the player midair.
Remember that?
And Jason Burton goes and checks on her, and he comes back laughing, and I'm sitting there on the radio call going, "What's he laughing about?" And we asked him post game, myself and Michelle Brooks, and he's like, "Yeah, she's laying there on the floor and going through concussion protocol or whatever after getting in this midair almost hockey collision." And looks up at Coach Burton and goes, "Coach, they shouldn't have done that. We're going to win this game." And then they went on like a 37-15 run after that.
I love it. I love it.
I love her.
That is wonderful. You know, we also, earlier we brought up the charge, her taking the first charge of the year where she gets up and goes and daffs Coach Burton, gives him a little shoulder bump. She just plays with so much joy. You know, I kind of want to get into SMU. You know, you brought up Tiara Young. You know, that is really the player we do not want to let get hot. You know, she averages 18 points a game. She's shooting about 31% from 3, 46% from the field, which is very impressive. She's really the player that if Desiree Colonel can shut her down, then we have a very good shot at winning this game.
Right. It'll be a tight game for sure. And let's finish this thing off with some score predictions. Me personally, I think it might be a closer game than we think just because of the kind of energy that a rivalry brings. I'm going to go 74-69. Mean Green take the victory, Connor.
Okay, I'm feeling more like 67-64 UNT.
Also
You
close.
are going low there. I am going within. It's going to be like a 10-point deficit type of game. So I may be in the 74s, like that 64 type range. It's going to be probably one of those low-scoring games because it is rival, but it also is home court advantage. So I think UNT is going to be just fired up, and I'm expecting us to get a win, get a victory.
You know, I have UNT winning 76-67.
Okay.
Man, we are all just right on the button here.
Yeah.
I put a bow on this thing?
Yeah.
All right, so, you know, North Texas 16-1 whenever they hit the 70-point mark this year. The only loss is the Tulsa game, the most recent one out, in which they scored 70 or win. I think they get to that magic number of 70 again. The thing about SMU, they got a good offense. Their defense is not good. It's third to last in terms of scoring allowed in the American Conference. So give me the Mean Green to win 78-64.
All right.
Like that.
You heard it from us. It's going to be a great day to be a student at the University of North Texas. We are going to be watching that game. We are all going to be there, and we hope you guys watch it on TV. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Have fun watching the Super Bowl tomorrow. That'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And
Men's are
go
playing
Mean
tomorrow,
Green.
too.
That's
Go
all
Mean
we
Green.
got.
Thanks, you guys.